Now we are going to cover how to complete a title, and we're going to go over the records that you'll need to keep as a licensed Indiana dealership. We're going to start by completing a title. When you receive your Indiana used dealer's license, you are going to complete a title differently from the way you ever have in the past. Because with the dealer's license, you're able to do what's called a reassignment of the title. You're going to be able to buy a vehicle and complete the information on the back of the title. Then you'll be able to resell the vehicle on the same title by doing what's called a reassignment of ownership on the back of the title. You do not have to obtain a new title to resell a vehicle. As a dealer, you can resell the vehicle on the same title. Now, when you buy a vehicle at a dealer auction, the dealer auction title clerk will assist you in completing the title because they complete sometimes thousands of titles every day. So I want to take you through a scenario that's a little bit different. And we're going to buy a vehicle from an individual. Then we're going to bring it back to our lot and resell it to another individual. As stated earlier in the course, I think it's going to be a very common scenario for you to be selling a vehicle, and it'll only be you and the customer present during the transaction. So the customer is going to expect you to know how to complete a title. And so what we're going to do is go buy a vehicle from an individual. We're going to mark it up and resell it to another individual. To start this process, it's going to be very important that you're aware that there are basically 4 parts to most transactions. And you should memorize this because hopefully you're going to be doing this several times a day. So number 1, we're going to need to buy a vehicle to resell. We're going to sell the vehicle and collect sales tax. If the title is in your possession at the time of the sale, you'll provide that to the customer. If the title is not in your possession, you need to provide it within 31 days. And then you're going to place an interim license plate on the vehicle you sold. Once again, we're going to buy a vehicle to resell, sell a vehicle and collect sales tax. If title is in possession, provide title at the time of the sale. If title is not in possession, provide title within 31 days of the sale. And then you're going to place an interim license plate on the vehicle you've sold. And hopefully you'll be doing this several times a day. Before you get started, it's important to know that you need a bill of sale whenever you're buying a vehicle or whenever you're selling a vehicle. And you're going to keep a copy of the bill of sale in your records, which we're going to cover in just a few moments. So you always want to make sure that you have a bill of sale on the buy and a bill of sale on the sell. So we're going to buy a vehicle from an individual and then resell it to another individual at our lot. So here you see an Indiana title. It's very important to be aware. It is illegal to acquire and resell a vehicle without titling it in your name unless you have a dealer's license. So transferring a vehicle without titling does not relieve anyone from the obligation to pay sales tax on a motor vehicle purchase. The only party that can legally purchase a vehicle and then resell it without paying sales tax will be you as a licensed motor vehicle dealer. A dealer is able to buy a vehicle and then resell it without paying the sales tax. However, there are people out there that want to buy and sell vehicles, but they do not want to obtain a dealer's license first. Some people do not want to go to the legal steps that you're going through to get a legal dealer's license, and they want to buy and sell vehicles illegally without a dealer's license, and we need to avoid these illegal dealers no matter what. So how does that process work? A person that wants to buy and sell vehicles illegally without a dealer's license may ask the owner of the vehicle that they are purchasing it from to just complete the seller's information on the back of the title, but they will illegally leave the purchaser's information blank, as you see here. Now, I want to magnify this to make it a little bit easier to understand. Sometimes when you're getting ready to buy a vehicle from an individual, the person might produce a title that looks like this. The person trying to sell you the vehicle has asked the previous owners of the vehicle to sign and print their names in the seller's box, but they have illegally left the purchaser's information box blank, as you see here. Many times a person trying to sell you this vehicle might have lied to the previous owner and stated they are buying for their relatives that's stationed overseas in the military, or they'll normally lie to the previous owner to get them to sign and print their names in the seller's box, but they leave the purchaser's information box blank. This title is illegal in all 50 states. This is called a blank, open, or skip title because the person trying to sell this vehicle has illegally skipped the payment of sales tax. This person is acting as a dealer without a dealer's license. So how do you avoid this illegal title when you're purchasing a vehicle from an individual? Actually, it's quite easy. Whenever you're considering purchasing a vehicle from an individual, just ask the customer trying to sell the vehicle Is the title in your name? Just ask them, is the title in your name? If they say yes, their name is on the title, that's excellent. Go make the buy. But sometimes a person might answer that question saying something like, well, no, the title's not in my name. I bought it from my neighbor a couple months ago, and now I'm selling it. Or they might lie to you and say something like, well, no, the title's not in my name. I bought it from my brother-in-law that's in the Army. He signed the back of it, and I'm just selling it for him. Remember, possession of that title is illegal. When you are purchasing a vehicle from an individual, you must only purchase it from the person's name, the person whose name is printed on the front of the title. If the person that is trying to sell you the vehicle's name is not on the title, then you need to step away from that vehicle. Only buy a vehicle from the person whose name is clearly printed on the title. And by the way, why would you ever support a person acting as a dealer that did not go through the legal steps that you're going through to get a legal dealer's license? So once you've established the person selling the vehicle is the rightful owner, let's go make the buy. And we're going to go buy the vehicle by completing the first assignment of ownership on the back of the title, as you see right here. So we're going to complete both the seller's information box and the purchaser's information box because you can never leave either one of these boxes blank. Both boxes must be completed at the time of the transaction. So let's go ahead and magnify this so we know how to do it correctly. The first thing we want to do is enter the mileage at the time of the sale. So be sure to enter the mileage reading. And I want to bring your attention to the two boxes in the odometer disclosure section. The first box reads, the odometer reading is stated in excess of its mechanical limits. Every once in a while, you might purchase an older vehicle and maybe the digital dash is no longer working. Or, maybe in the past, you might remember vehicles had mechanical odometers and some of them only had 5 digits. And oftentimes they would roll over. So maybe the vehicle's odometer read 63,000 miles, but the odometer might have rolled over and the true mileage might have been 163,000 miles or 263,000 miles, but the odometer was no longer accurate. If you acquire a vehicle and you're not able to verify the mileage, then you need to check the box that states the odometer reading, as stated, is in excess of its mechanical limits. There can also be a scenario where you buy a vehicle with an incorrect odometer, which is known as a discrepancy. Let's say, for example, you're buying a 1967 Chevy Chevelle, and the owner states that the old odometer quit working, and they replaced the old odometer with a new odometer. And let's say the old odometer read 90,000 miles and the new odometer reached 12,000 miles. Well, this is an incorrect odometer known as a discrepancy. Incorrect odometers must be disclosed to all future buyers. And I'll also show you an odometer disclosure statement here in just a little while. If you ever acquire a vehicle and the odometer is not recorded on that title, then you'll have to record the odometer information on an odometer disclosure statement. So if the odometer is incorrect, be sure to check the box that reads, the odometer reading is not the actual mileage, warning odometer discrepancy. Now you're going to have the current owner sign and print their name as you see here. If you have two persons' names on the front of the title, be sure that both persons have signed the back of the title so they have both given legal permission to sell the vehicle. You're going to enter the date, and now we're going to complete the purchaser's information over here to the right. You're going to enter your name and your dealership. Remember, we're buying the vehicle. Enter your dealership address, and then you will sign your name and print your name. And now you have purchased your first vehicle to resell. Now we're going to bring the vehicle back to our lot, mark that price up and resell the vehicle as high as you can. And since you're a licensed motor vehicle dealer, you're going to resell the vehicle using the same title when you purchase the vehicle. You do not have to obtain a new title to resell the vehicle. You can simply do what is known as a reassignment by registered dealer. So here you see a title that has been reassigned by a registered dealer. And I want to magnify this to make it a little bit easier to understand. Remember, just a few moments ago, we purchased the vehicle in the top box on the back of the title. We were purchasing the vehicle. Well, now you're going to complete the first reassignment by registered dealer, as you see here. So now you have the vehicle on the lot, and a customer named Terry Ellis walks onto your lot and wants to buy the vehicle from you. So when you're reselling the vehicle, you're just going to complete the information in the first reassignment by registered dealer box, as you see right here. Something to be aware of. Now you are the seller And Terry Ellis is buying the vehicle from you, so he is the purchaser. So you're going to enter that current odometer reading at the time of the sale, which might be different than the odometer reading was when you acquired the vehicle. You're going to enter your dealership name, sign the title, then you print your name. You'll enter your position, such as if you're the owner. You'll enter your dealer number. And remember, you cannot legally reassign a vehicle like I'm showing you unless you are a licensed motor vehicle dealer. If you ever forget your dealer number, that's fine. Just look at your dealer number on your dealer license that's displayed in your office. Now you're going to complete the purchaser information as you see here. You're going to enter the purchaser's name and address and have the purchaser sign the title and enter their printed name. And in a very brief nutshell, this is exactly how you're going to make money in your new business as a licensed Indiana motor vehicle dealer. You're going to buy a vehicle as low as you can and sell it for as high as you can. Any motor vehicle is kind of like a stock. You're going to buy low and you're going to sell high. And this truly is the world's greatest business. Now here you see the back of the title reassigned. So make sure that you make a copy front and back of the reassigned title for your records. And I want to bring your attention to the multiple reassignments on the back of most states' titles, including Indiana's. When you get into this new business as a licensed dealer, you're going to find that many times when you purchase a vehicle, say for example at a dealer auction, you're going to find that vehicle has already been bought and sold between other dealers. These are called wholesale sales. When you sell a vehicle to a customer on your lot, that's a retail sale. But when you sell a vehicle to another licensed dealer, that's referred to as a wholesale sale. Indiana's title allows 3 dealer reassignments. Some states have titles that have 4 or 5 or more reassignments. So this title you see here has been reassigned once by a dealer. Now on this screenshot, you're going to see the second reassignment by registered dealer. And then on this screenshot, you're going to see the third reassignment by registered dealer. So this vehicle has been bought and sold by 3 different motor vehicle dealers. Now, what you have is called a full title. Now, what scenario could lead to this? You know, there are a lot of scenarios that could lead to this. Maybe the initial purchase, the dealer purchased this vehicle from an individual off a Facebook marketplace, and they wanted to cash it out as soon as possible. They might have taken it right over to the Indianapolis Manheim dealer auction and sold it right there. Well, maybe a dealer at that auction realizes another auction on the other side of the state's going quite a bit higher. So a lot of times dealers will buy one vehicle from one dealer auction and then take it over to another dealer auction and mark it up and sell it the following week. So maybe another dealer bought it from that dealer auction and then sold it to the dealer across the street. So that's what could lead to multiple reassignments or multiple dealer-to-dealer sales. Now, when you have all the reassignment boxes completed, this is called a full title. A full title has had all the reassignments completed. Now, you would think you would not be able to sell this vehicle because it has a full title, but certain titles can be resold with a form I'm going to show you right here, which is called your Reassignment by Registered Dealer Form 20070. This form allows you to take some full titles and sell it one more time. But I want you to be aware there are some rules that apply to you when you're using this form. This can be used with an Indiana or out-of-state title that does not have 3 dealer reassignments. It cannot be used on an Indiana title issued after September of 1989, cannot be used with a certificate of origin, cannot be used solely with a bill of sale, cannot be used with out-of-state titles that have 3 dealer reassignment spaces, or if they states no additional reassignments, cannot be used on a title that has usable dealer reassignments. So if you have a usable reassignment, you want to make sure and use that reassignment. You don't ever want to skip a reassignment on the back of any title, and it cannot be used on any title for the purpose of replacing any skipped assignments like I showed you just a moment ago, or any open titles or anything like that. Please be sure you can never possess an open, blank, or what they call a skipped assignment title, and that means somebody has skipped the payment of sales tax like on that title that I showed you just a moment ago. So you can never use a reassignment form to resell a vehicle when someone has illegally skipped those assignments. A certificate of salvage title cannot be used with one of these either. So when would you use this form? You know, I think it'd be a very common scenario for you to buy a vehicle from a dealer auction on the last assignment, like you see here, take it to your dealership and have somebody who wants to buy it on the spot. Well, if you didn't have that reassignment form, then you would have to wait on a new title from the BMV. But if you have these forms on hand, you can resell some titles once again on the spot. And then once again, that is Indiana State Form 20070. And I hope that you are finding this information very helpful as you're getting ready to launch your new business. Next, I want you to be aware the state will fine you for late delivery of a title. You have to, if you sell a vehicle without the title and you don't have that title in your possession, you have to deliver that title to the customer within 31 days. I want to repeat that. If you're selling a vehicle before you have possession of the title, you must deliver that title within 31 days. Selling a vehicle before you have possession of the title. I want you to be really, really aware that when you get your dealer's license and start purchasing vehicles at dealer auctions, you're going to find that many times when you buy a vehicle at a dealer auction, you may not get the title that day. And there are many, many scenarios that could lead you to not receiving a title on the day of the auction sale. You could have a third-party lender that has a title, or maybe you have a dealership in Cleveland, Ohio that's selling all their vehicles at the Indianapolis dealer auction. And in this scenario, the dealer in Cleveland will mail the titles to the Indianapolis dealer auction a day or so after the sale. So it's going to be quite common for you to purchase a vehicle at a dealer auction and not get the title on the day of the sale. Now, in many scenarios, the dealer auction will have that title to the vehicle you purchased, and you may leave the dealer auction with the title in your hand. And when you're bidding on a vehicle at a dealer auction, make sure and pay close attention to the screen behind the auctioneer in the auction lanes. On that screen, you'll be able to see if the title to the vehicle that you're bidding on is at the dealer auction, or if the title is not at the dealer auction and will be mailed to your dealership following the sale date. The state does allow you to sell the vehicle that you bought at a dealer auction before you have possession of the title. But state law requires the dealer to deliver the title to the purchaser within 31 days of the date of the sale. If the title is not delivered to the customer within 31 days, the customer can return the vehicle within 10 days of the customer's demand for a full refund of the purchase price, taxes, and all other fees. The customer can also file a complaint with the Consumer Protection Division of the Office of the Indiana Attorney General. That is, if the title is not delivered within 31 days. When you buy a vehicle at a dealer auction and you haven't gotten that title, I'm going to stay in contact with that customer no matter what. But you want to stay in contact with your dealer auction and find out why you haven't gotten that title. There could be another dealer that's maybe dragging their feet, and they sold that vehicle to the dealer auction and they are not getting the title to the dealer auction, so the dealer auction can get it to you. A dealer auction is going to mail you a title as soon as they receive it. But if you're selling a vehicle before you possess a title, you're going to need to complete State Form 46633. And I want to repeat that. Very, very important information. If you're selling a vehicle before you possess a title, you must complete State Form 4633, and you must deliver the title to the customer within 31 days. If you do not deliver that title within 31 days, you're going to get some reminders from the state called fines. First of all, there's a $100 fee, a $100 fine for the first violation of late delivery title in the calendar year. The second violation is $250. The third violation is $500. So you want to make sure that you are getting that title to the customer as fast as you possibly can when you've sold that vehicle before you actually have the title in your possession. And I want to remind you, you're going to be able to review all these videos at indiana.dealerslicense.com and download all the forms that you need at indiana.dealerslicense.com. Let's talk quickly about the collection of sales tax. Dealers must collect sales tax on most transactions. So what you're going to do, you're going to multiply the vehicle's taxable value by 7%, that's the state sales tax rate, and then you're going to remit the sales tax that you've collected through InTime. And don't worry, sales tax is covered extensively later on in your dealer training course, and we have a whole training unit on the easy collection of sales tax later in the course. But I want to give you really just a quick narration to show you how to complete ST-108. And this is the form that shows how much sales tax was collected. So let's go ahead and magnify this form right here. You're going to enter your name. You're going to enter your merchant certificate number or your tax ID number, whatever you want to call it. You'll enter 3 digits of your merchant certificate location number. Then you're going to enter your federal tax ID number. Then you enter your dealer number and dealer address and the VIN and make and model of the vehicle you sold. And now you're going to enter the selling price of the vehicle. So in this scenario, let's say we sold the vehicle for $10,000 and we did not take a trade. So the total taxable amount is $10,000, and you're going to multiply 10,000 by the state sales tax rate of 7%. So the customer is paying $700 in sales tax, assuming this vehicle is being purchased by an Indiana resident. Now, let's throw in a trade-in. Let's say we sold that vehicle for $10,000 and we took a $3,000 trade-in. So as you see here, you would enter $10,000 for the total selling price, enter $3,000 in the trade-in allowance box, and then take the total selling price of $10,000, subtract the $3,000 trade-in allowance, which will now total $7,000, which is the amount subject to sales tax. And you'll multiply the $7,000 by the Indiana sales tax rate of 7%, and the customer pays $490 in sales tax. So also be sure to enter the trade-in, VIN, year, make, and model as well if you did take a trade-in. And I want you to be aware, we'll be covering sales tax extensively, much more in depth later on in your dealer training course. So then you're going to date the form, print your name and dealer name, and you're going to sign it, and then you'll enter your title again. So once again, Indiana State Form ST-108, showing the amount of sales tax collected on that transaction, is going to be completed on most transactions. Now that we've bought the vehicle to resell, we've sold the vehicle, and we've collected sales tax, now we're going to do that final step, which is printing an interim plate, which can be done on the Plates on Demand system at the dealer portal. Dealers can access and print motor vehicle and trailer interim license plates online right at your dealership as needed with the Plates on Demand. So this has been designed to work with, later model Firefox, later versions of Firefox, Safari, Google Chrome, and things like that. I want to give you a quick phone number before we move on. If you ever have questions about Plates on Demand, you can call 317-576-2568. That's a special phone number for the dealer portal and Plates on Demand. Or you can always drop an email, dealers@sos.in.gov. So here's where we're at in the deal. We've sold the vehicle, we've charged sales tax, and now we're going to issue the interim plate on the vehicle that we sold. Now I want to show you how to do that right now. Before the customer leaves the dealership, you're going to log into the dealer portal, dealers.sos.in.gov, and just click on the blue login at the very top of the dealer portal. At first, you're going to see your dealer portal dashboard like I showed you earlier. And you can just click on the Online Services tab, like you see right here. Then you're going to select your dealer number from the drop-down box. Most dealers will only have one number, but if you have multiple licenses, be sure to select the corresponding dealer number from the drop-down box. Then you'll click on Plates on Demand. And then you're going to see all the interim plates credits that you have here. Printing the interim plate on the vehicle you just sold is very easy to do. So you're going to click on the Generate Plate tab, as you see here, and you're going to select whether you are generating a motor vehicle size interim plate or a motorcycle size interim plate. And then you just enter the vehicle identification number to the vehicle sold, double check every number and letter in the VIN so the interim plate can be generated correctly. You're going to click Validate VIN, and then the magic of this dealer portal will come into play and do a quick VIN lookup. And if the VIN is correct, then you're going to see the vehicle that you've just sold. If the VIN is incorrect, then you might see a different vehicle. So if this is the vehicle that you just sold, then you'll go ahead and confirm that that is the correct vehicle. And once you have validated the VIN, then you'll be able to easily enter the customer's name and address. And you can enter the customer's phone number and email as well. Be sure you're spelling the customer's name correctly. You might take a look at their ID or have them spell their name on a piece of paper so you're not misspelling their name here. Then you're going to see a screen that says plate generated successfully. And at the top of this screen, you're going to see the vehicle that you just sold. So just click on the print button at the very top of this screen, and then you'll see a PDF pop up, and you can easily print your interim plate like you see here. This is what the interim plate or temporary registration, what is sometimes called, will look like in your web browser. And this is what the interim plate will look like in Adobe. So now you just want to print it and place that temporary plate on the vehicle that you have just sold. And here you see this is your temporary registration, which is officially known as your interim plate, to be placed on the vehicle that you sold. Now there are two areas that you are allowed to mount this interim plate. You can mount it on the license plate frame on the rear of the vehicle you've sold, as you see here, or you can place it in a window facing rearward, as you see here as well. So congratulations are in order. You have sold your first vehicle. Pretty easy, huh? Now we're going to start that paper trail. and we're going to start documenting the transaction. Here's some of the documents that you're going to need. You're going to need a bill of sale. You're going to need that ST-108 form that shows collection of tax, front and back of the copy that has to be reassigned. Make sure the front and back copy are the reassigned title. You'll have to have that 31-day affidavit if a title was not provided at the time of the sale. And then also you might have a copy, you'll probably have a copy of the FTC Buyer's Guide, which we're going to cover extensively later on in your dealer training course. So here's your bill of sale that you're going to use on every single transaction. Here is the Form 108. That's a certificate of gross retail sales tax paid. Here is the front copy of the title. Here is the back copy of the title showing the reassignments. Here's your title affidavit 46633 if you sold the vehicle before you have the title. And here's a copy of your FTC Buyer's Guide, which we will cover extensively later on in the course. That's sometimes referred to as your as-is sticker. So you got the bill of sale, ST-108, copy of the reassigned title, front and back, 31-day affidavit if you sold a vehicle before you have the title, and the FTC Buyer's Guide. Now here's some supporting documents you might need, such as a dealer reassignment form, power of attorney, salvage vehicle statement. If you've ever sold if you're selling a vehicle with a rebuild or salvage title, that's the law. Tax exemption forms for like charities and things like that, and other forms. So, I do want you to be aware, if you are using any dealer management software program, which I highly recommend, these forms will be printed for you automatically. A good dealer management software program computes the sales tax for Indiana residents. It computes sales tax for out-of-state residents, and it can help obtain customer financing. It's going to print most of you, or if not all of your required documents, and will help you maintain your paperwork compliance. And at the end of the course, I'm going to show you what a good dealer management software program can do for you. A dealer management software program can do just about everything that's covered in the course with about 2 or 3 clicks of the mouse, including generating all of your required documents for your dealer records, which we're going to call your deal jacket. Make sure and put all the records for one specific vehicle in your deal jacket. If you ever have questions about records, you can call Dealer Services directly, 317-234-7190, and you can always drop them an email at dealers@sos.in.gov. Now, you cannot run this business without a copy machine. You can try to run your new business without a copy machine scanner, but it's not going to happen. It is imperative that you purchase a copy machine scanner for your business and that you ensure that you're meeting your mandatory records requirements. You must keep all records at least 5 years. So records must be stored at your licensed location for at least 2 years, and your records may be stored at an off-site location for the remaining 5 years. And once again, I want to repeat that. Very important records information. Records must be stored at your licensed location for at least 2 years. Records may be stored at an off-site location for the remaining 5 years. Now, your records may be stored via hard copy or electronically, but they may, as long as the records can be readily accessible and available to copy by any investigating or auditing employee. Upon demand at the place of the business, the dealer must electronically or by mail be ready to produce all of your records. So whether you're storing records via paper or electronically on your computer, they must be available on demand and immediately. You're going to be starting a huge paper trail when you obtain your dealer's license, so you want to keep your records in a good, organized manner. Here's some of the additional forms or records that you'll need to be aware of. Here's a dealer-to-dealer resale certificate exemption. This is a form that must be completed when you're buying or selling a vehicle to explain why sales tax was not paid, and it can only be used by licensed dealers like you will be here very soon. Here's a certificate of gross retail. That's the Form 108 that I showed you that's going to help compute sales tax. And page 2 of all these forms will have step-by-step instructions if you ever need that. Here is a certificate of gross retail exemption 108E. This form shows if someone is selling a vehicle or someone buying a vehicle and they don't have to pay sales tax. So this is if you're selling a vehicle to an organization that's exempt from paying sales tax, such as a nonprofit agency or maybe a government agency. So let's just say, for example, maybe you are selling a vehicle to a church. Well, most churches are going to be nonprofits. So more than likely you would not be collecting sales tax. But this is a form that you must complete if you're selling a vehicle to a government agency or a nonprofit. So let's say you're selling a van to a church. then more than likely they will have a sales tax exemption. Or if you sold a, say for example, a non-highway truck to a mining company, something like that that's not going to be used on road. Just be sure the purchaser can show you their social security number, their tax ID, or their federal employment number. That is a requirement. So you want to make sure that you document everything. And here's page 2 if you have a need for further instructions on that document. This is a form ST108NR, and this shows gross receipt or use tax that was paid on a vehicle for a non-resident. So you're going to complete this vehicle when you're selling a vehicle to someone that lives outside the state of Indiana. You complete this for non-residents. That's what the NR stands for. And here's page 2 of that document. If you ever have questions about a form, just turn it over for complete step-by-step instructions on the back of the form, like you see right here. Here's an affidavit of exemption by non-resident on the purchase of a vehicle or cargo trailer. So this is ST137RV, which is completed on out-of-state residents buying RVs or cargo trailers. And then here's page 2 of that document. Here's an important form to be aware of. This is detached catalytic converter affidavit, state form 57316, that you must complete if you're buying or selling a detached catalytic converter affidavit, okay? So obviously, detached catalytic converters have been stolen a lot, so the state has passed a law. If you're ever buying or selling a detached catalytic converter, then you must complete this affidavit, which is state form 57316. Make sure you never buy a detached catalytic converter without this affidavit. This is the convenience fee disclosure form 5605. If you're charging a convenience fee, you must complete this form. And I'm always going to recommend that you contact dealer services to find out more about charging convenience fees. Dealers that arrange financing with third-party lenders or become a buy here, pay here dealership, you're required to register with the Department of Financial Institutions by completing IUCCC Form 1. But I want you to know, if you ever have any questions about that registration, you can call the department directly at 317-453-2529, or you can drop them an email to dfi.licensing@dfi.in.gov. And here's a copy of that form. Please be aware this form is a 6-page document, so be sure to contact the Indiana Department of Financial Institutions if you have questions about this form or any questions about financing. So if you are offering third-party financing or buy here, pay here financing, you've got to notify the state. And I'm assuming that you're probably going to be doing that. We do have a whole other unit that covers financing extensively later on in your dealer training course. Here's an odometer disclosure statement. If the odometer was not disclosed on the title, or if you just want some additional documentation on the odometer record, you can use this odometer disclosure statement form, state form 43230. Once again, it's only required if the odometer is not completed, the odometer reading is not completed on the certificate of title. Or maybe on trailers or vehicles over 16,000 pounds, they are always going to be exempt. Here's some very important information. A dealer must disclose a vehicle that's been sold with a salvage or rebuilt salvage title. Now, a rebuilt vehicle is a salvage vehicle that has been restored. A salvage vehicle is a vehicle that has not yet been restored. So I want to repeat that. A salvage vehicle has been declared impractical to insure by an insurance company, and it's in wrecked condition. A vehicle with a salvage title cannot be driven with any type of interim plate. Now, a vehicle that has been restored is called a rebuilt vehicle, and that has been fixed and repaired and can be legally driven. But no matter what, if you're selling a vehicle with a salvage title or a rebuilt salvage title, the law is very clear. This form is mandatory when selling a vehicle with a salvage or rebuilt salvage title. This is salvage or rebuilt vehicle disclosure, state form 55974, which must be completed for any vehicle you're selling that has a salvage or rebuilt salvage. And by the way, a salvage title is a vehicle that's been in a wreck, has not been repaired. A rebuilt title is a vehicle that's been in a wreck, but now has been repaired and is safe to drive on roadways. And I predict that you're going to buy a lot of vehicles with rebuilt salvage titles at your dealer auctions. So that's something by law that you have to disclose to your customer. This is called physical inspection of a vehicle or watercraft, state form 3953, which can be used when purchasing a vehicle with an out-of-state title. And I want you to be aware of what's called a dealership audit. It's very important to maintain organized records. Just by having an Indiana dealer's license, always remember your records are open to the state for inspection. And your records can be inspected at any time during what is known as a dealership audit. The Auto Dealer Services Division may schedule a dealer audit for any number of reasons. An examiner might audit your records in person at your dealer location, or your examiner may conduct what's called a desk audit, and they'll request deal jackets and other documents via email instead of being an in-person audit. But I want you to be prepared for both of these. If you have an examiner in your dealership doing an in-office examination, they're going to need a desk, access to an electrical outlet, and access to your records. Here's some of the records that you're going to need during an audit. The first thing you would need is any documentation explaining why multiple interim plates were issued for the same deal. And that would only be for mistakes and things like that. So you always want to have all of your ownership documents, titles that have been reassigned, completed consignment forms, auction receipts. You'll never have too much paperwork at all times. Here are some additional records that you should be able to be ready to produce during an audit. You've got your bill of sale, Form ST-108 for retail, ST-108E for exemptions, ST-108 non-residents docs, remember that? Copy of all reassigned titles, front and back, any branded title information that you might have, any finance documents. So if you're financing, then you want copies of your installment contracts. If you're exporting vehicles to other countries, make sure you have your export documentation. 31-day title delivery affidavit. Make sure that you've got that if you're not delivering the title at the time of the sale. Federal Trade Commission buyer's guides, any consumer disclosures, and any documents necessary to support the explanation of any unusual circumstances surrounding the sale or any transaction. Other documents for your audit, make sure you got your dealer license displayed, make sure you got your retail merchant certificate displayed, make sure you got a copy of your insurance and your bond, because dealers have to be insured and bonded the entire time that you have your dealership. I want you to be aware of this form, which is known as the Examiner Audit Worksheet. And this is the worksheet that your examiner may use to ensure your compliance. As you can see right there, they want to make sure that you have a dealer sign, that you have a display area for at least 10 vehicles. They're going to go through that list and make sure you're complying with everything. They're going to make sure you have your deal jackets and bills of sales and titles accurately reflecting the transactions. And then you're also going to ensure that you have all of your consignment documentation as well. And then this is where your examiner can actually sign that document. So I do want you to be very, very aware of these. Advance notice of an audit. Now, in most cases, dealers will be given a 3-day advance notice before an audit takes place. Dealers are not notified in advance if they're being investigated following a complaint by a customer. So in most cases, they'll give you a 3-day warning, but if you've had a complaint against your dealership, they will arrive or request documents unannounced. Let's talk about that. Customers can easily file complaints against Indiana dealers. Customers can mail in a dealer complaint form. They can submit a complaint online, or they can call dealer services. Any customer can easily complete State Form 53607, which is called the dealer complaint form, like you see right here. So your customer can easily submit this form, or your customer can easily find the dealer portal online, as you see here. The Auto Dealer Services Division makes it very easy for your customer to log a complaint against any licensed motor vehicle dealership, including you. Now, your customer can enter their contact details, or believe it or not, your customer can file an anonymous complaint against you and not even leave their contact information, as you see right here. There are numerous complaint types the customer can choose from, such as maybe they did not receive the title, or down payment was not returned after returning a vehicle, unauthorized off-site sales. Remember, you cannot show your vehicles at off-site locations unless it's an officially registered off-site sale. False advertising, odometer discrepancies, an altered license plate. That's a big violation there. Rebuilt brand not disclosed. You must disclose rebuilt and salvaged titles. Please keep that dealer complaint process in your mind. For example, if you sold a vehicle to a customer this morning and the same customer is coming back during the afternoon, you don't want to run out the back door of your dealership. I recommend making any prior customer your top priority. Put all your other customers on hold that might be looking at vehicles on your lot. Always prioritize the previous customer. We do not want a customer logging a complaint against us, because then we have become a blip on the state's radar and we're going to get a dealer audit. We do not want that. We do not want customer complaints. Do everything you can to keep all of your customers happy, so hopefully they'll never log a complaint. If you ever get a dealer audit, just be courteous and respectful to the auditor. And remember that examiner is doing their job to ensure that you're doing our job of following every single law, every regulation, and every guideline. This is a high profit industry that does have a lot of regulatory oversight. If you need copies of the records we just discussed, you can go to indiana.dealerslicense.com. Once again, indiana.dealerslicense.com. Then scroll down to the dealer license forms page, and I think you're going to be able to find just about every single document for the course here. Or you can always use a dealer management software program that should have all these forms available for you to complete during a transaction. Most software programs will print up the required documents based on the customer zip code, and the good dealer management system can be very, very advantageous to your business. All records must be kept a minimum of 5 years. So remember, the first 2 years, they got to be stored at your dealership. After 2 years, you can store your records at a non-licensed location away from the dealership. You can store your records via paper or electronically. And I want to give you that reminder now. If you want to review this training, go to indiana.dealerslicense.com and click on the videos link, and you can just scroll right down there and click on how dealers complete titles. I hope that you're finding this information extremely advantageous as you get ready to start your new business.